Story 1. I met Weird Al and got starstruck and didn't know what to say to him. I finally blurted out, "I know you probably hear this a lot, but I am a huge fan." He smiled and responded, "I do hear that a lot, but I've never heard it from you." Made my day. Story 2. I worked as a cashier in a State Line, Nevada casino in the early 1980s. Part of our training included a warning that Bruce Dern often gambled in the early morning, and he did not like to be recognized. I have been a huge Bruce Dern fan since Silent Running, and it was enough for me to spot him from across the room. One day, I was training a new hire, and Mr. Dern came to our window. I had forgotten to warn my trainee about him. After the trainee cashed out his chips, he said, "Has anyone ever told you that you look just like Bruce Dern?" Mr. Dern grinned and said, "I get that a lot," and walked away. It made my day. Story 3. Went to see Penn and Teller in Vegas, and one of their magic tricks during the show involved the audience. The trick worked for everyone in my family, but not for me. Now they're well known for meeting people after their show, so we stayed, got autographs and photos with them. Even Teller was talking. They couldn't have been nicer. Penn asked me, "What did you think of the show?" My stupid mouth just fired back, "Your audience trick didn't work." He then asked my family, "Did it work for you?" They all nodded with an enthusiastic yes. Without missing a beat, he turned to me, "Well, there's the problem, you're an idiot." Getting personally insulted by Penn was the high point of that Vegas trip. Story 4. I met Will Wheaton at a big science fiction convention a few years ago. It was like halfway through the third day, and he had been signing stuff for hours. I got to the front of the line, and he jumped out of his chair in excitement and yelled, "Are those Batleth earrings? So cool." He then proceeded to sign my dorky old Star Trek, The Next Generation comic, with Wesley Crusher on the cover, of course, and we put an earring on the cover so he could take a photo of Wesley with it. We talked about open source software and the Electronic Frontier Foundation. The whole interaction took 3 to 4 minutes, but he was just totally there for it, despite having 100 other people he had to interact with. He later included the photo in his blog. Story 5. When I was in junior high, I wrote a paper on Thor Heyerdahl in Easter Island. In high school, I wrote another about his reed boat Atlantic crossing attempt. I went to college to study anthropology, both because of him and Indiana Jones. I was 15. Give me a break. Through a series of familial misadventures, my money for graduate school vanished, and I joined the military to get the cash to finish. While stationed in Charleston, South Carolina, I was with a buddy walking along the pier when I saw this gorgeous three-master sitting up ahead. I wanted to go look at it and saw it was flying a Norwegian flag. I got closer and started talking with one of the girls on the ship. She said they were college students, and this was a sort of foreign study credit, sailing the ship from Bergen all the way around to South America. That sounded amazing. As I was looking around, I noticed that the ship was called the Heyerdahl. I commented that I wrote papers on Thor and got my degrees based on my admiration. She asked if I ever met him, and I just laughed. I was a poor kid from western South Dakota. What were the chances I'd ever get to meet him? She said he was right over at a cafe less than a block away. I remember with unbelievable clarity. He was sitting on a little white bench outside the place with a disposable cup of something and a book in his hand. There was a small table and chair not far away, and I could only just sit and look. He looked up about a minute or two later, saw me and said, "I'm sorry, but are you all right?" I didn't even realize I was crying. Over the next hour and a half, I talked and listened to him, watched him smile and talk about how adventure still existed. You just had to find them and live them whenever you could. He invited me to visit him if I was ever in Norway, and we both laughed at that. When he died in 2002, I bawled my eyes out. I live in Atlanta now, and a little over a year ago, my wife and I went to Charleston for a few days. After dinner one evening, we were walking along the pier, and I saw where the ship had been tied up. Nothing there at that moment. Then I turned to where the cafe was and saw the bench. I sat where he sat for a while. Story 6. Not sure this is a never meet your heroes story, but it's a great example of why you shouldn't always listen to that advice. I met Terry Farrell, the actress who played Jadzia Dax on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, at a convention question and answer session when I was 15. She and another Star Trek Deep Space Nine actress, Nana Visitor for the Trekkies out there, were up on stage answering questions, and there were two lines leading to a microphone on either side of the stage. Well, suddenly on Terry's side, the microphone went out, and without skipping a beat, Terry got off the stage and started holding out her own microphone to people so they could keep asking questions. Terry even gave a hug to a 4 to 5-year-old girl ahead of me in line. I got to the front, and there I am, an extremely shy 15-year-old, arm's length away from my childhood hero, in front of several hundred people. I managed to tremblingly squeak out that she is my favorite character in all of Star Trek, and before I can say another word, she gives me a big hug. I ended up asking her about her favorite episode. Her answer was Blood Oath, for those curious, and went back to my seat. My dad had also bought me a photo opportunity with her later that day, and when I got there, she exclaimed something to the effect of, "Oh, I remember you," and immediately pulled me into another big hug for the photo. I still have that photo as well as an autographed photo of her character. Words cannot describe how much that encounter impacted me. I never expected someone who probably met thousands of fans that day to show so much care to one awkward teenager who just wanted to meet her hero like everyone else. Jadzia Dax is everything I wanted to be growing up. She is kind, confident, smart, funny, and adventurous. I still want to be all those things, but more than anything, I hope I can learn to exude even half the kindness that Terry Farrell does. So yeah, sometimes your heroes really are heroes. Story 7. Jason Alexander, George from Seinfeld, came to give a guest lecture on acting at the university my friend attended. My friend was on his way to class when he ran into Jason Alexander, who had just finished his lecture. Instead of saying, "You're George from Seinfeld," my friend said, "Holy crap, you're Jason Alexander." Jason Alexander heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Nobody remembers my name. It's always George this, Festivus that. Know what, kid? Want to get lunch together?" And my friend says, "Oh, sorry, I'm late for class," and took off for biology. He gets to class, sits down, and suddenly realizes he just turned down lunch with Jason Alexander. Don't meet your heroes because sometimes you're really dumb and they'll see it. Story 8. When I was a kid, I was super into Broadway and musical theater. My dream was to be on Broadway. So, for my 9th birthday, my mom got us tickets to see Wicked on Broadway in New York with most of the original cast. This was a huge trip for us, as we lived on the West Coast. My mom had mentioned to someone working at the show that it was her daughter's birthday, and that Idina Menzel was my hero. This was before Frozen and before she was as big of a name as she is now. Somehow, this person brought us backstage after the show to meet the cast. Everyone backstage was very kind and sweet to me, except Idina Menzel. Kristen Chenoweth was super awesome, and Joey McIntyre was really nice and tried to cheer me up, but Idina wouldn't come out of her dressing room. I got to hear her tell Joey, through her dressing room door, that she didn't care about some kid and to leave her alone. 9-year-old me was crushed, and even though the others were kind and did their best to salvage the situation, I lost interest in musical theater after that. Story 9. At a corporate training session, we had all the best mechanical engineers in one place. I knew one person by reputation, one of those individuals who could take a downed helicopter and get it flying again with very little time and spare parts. His record was amazing. He earned huge sums due to this reputation. I found out he would sign off riskier projects under other people's names, so if they turned out to be unfeasible, his reputation would remain intact. Most of those so-called miracle repairs I mentioned were achieved at the cost of dismantling other functional equipment. He would take a vehicle that was heavily damaged, boast about how he put it back together, then proceed to take parts from another similar but minimally damaged and still working vehicle, break it down, and use that to repair his chosen project, effectively breaking 3 to 4 vehicles to repair one and make himself look good. Huge problem. Story 10. I met Robin Williams while working on a comedy show, and he couldn't have been more kind and friendly, with me gushing about how I wore out his first comedy album on vinyl and had to buy another one. He said, "Your parents must have been pretty cool. Most of them would break a record over their knee. After the first day of the shoot, all of us camera operators had to be told to back off Robin because we all wanted to be around him, and we had too much footage of him already. He spent a lot of time talking to fellow legend Mort Saul. Story 11. Went to see James Blake in Philadelphia. On the way to the show, we spotted him at a small coffee shop. We stopped in to say we were going to see him, and he was so happy he took a picture with us. At the time, my buddies and I were running a small clothing company, high school business, nothing big. We told James and his producer we had free shirts in our car. The car was parked in a dingy Philadelphia alleyway. James and his producer freaking trusted us, came to the car, and we gave them shirts. The show starts. James walks out wearing our shirt and proceeds to shout out the two lovely lads who gave us these shirts, and shouted out the name of our company. I never screamed so loud. It was amazing. Edit. You can kind of see the shirt. It says, Anonymous Mad Villainy, which was the company name because we thought we were so cool. Story 12. Met fellowship members Viggo Mortensen and Ian McKellen on separate occasions while I was working as a camera operator for an entertainment channel. Viggo was a delight. He could tell I was really starstruck, so he asked me for a selfie before we got rolling. When I told him my friends and I used to pretend to be Aragorn at playtime in our youth, he laughed and told me it was incredibly sweet. McKellen saw me accidentally smash a mirror to smithereens while I was setting up my shot and couldn't have been kinder, despite delaying him by cleaning up on what must have been a very busy day for him. Story 13. I was on a work trip with a total jerk finance brother, and we went to a strip club. Mark Cuban was there, and my coworker gave him his card and said, "If you give me a chance, I will make you a lot of money." Mark Cuban leaned in and said, "Do you really think you are smarter than me?" I thought it was hilarious. Story 14. Had the weirdest interaction of my life with a musical actor back in 2016. I was 17 and had a really bad day. I just came from a childhood friend's funeral, but my family didn't want to skip the musical since we had booked months ago and the tickets were expensive. So they dragged me along hoping it would make me feel better. It actually did, mainly because of a solo this musical actor had, which made my day a lot better. At the end of the night, I looked up his name and mentioned him in a harmless tweet praising him for his talent. He liked the tweet, followed me on Twitter, and then we didn't have any interaction for almost a year. Until my 18th birthday, when I posted a picture of a gift with a caption like, "Happy birthday to me, finally of age," or something similar. He sent me a private message congratulating me, and I was super excited that someone as popular as him would talk to me. So I thanked him, and we messaged a bit back and forth, actually getting along quite well and sharing some interests. Looking back, the messages were already kind of flirty, but I was shy and innocent. Also, I was 18 and he was almost 40, so I didn't want to see it and just ignored it. At one point, we became friends on Facebook since messaging there was nicer than on Twitter, and we messaged quite frequently for about 2 weeks. One day, we messaged for hours, so he was like, "Hey, why don't we talk on Skype? Wouldn't that be nicer than writing?" You possibly see where this is going, but I didn't. Please don't blame me for being naive. I was just super young and starstruck. Of course, I said yes. He called me and we talked for about half an hour about his job, about our day, just everything. Without any notice, he just started taking his clothes off and told me that now it was my turn to do the same. Reality hit me like a brick, and after just staring at my screen like a deer in headlights at a car for a minute, I hung up and decided that maybe I should stop idolizing people. I haven't heard from him since except for a short sorry, but I learned a lot from that. Also, this is a very fun story to tell at parties. Story 15. I was kind of into ski racing as a kid and was working with my instructor when he held me back in the lift line a chair, only to catch the next ride. Lo and behold, it was Picabo Street with us on the chair. My little preteen soul was in awe. She was amazing. She pulled a full 6-inch sub out of her jacket and started eating, chatting away about eating enough, racing, skiing, life, etc. I can barely remember what she said because I couldn't stop staring. She took 2 runs with us. I could barely pretend to keep up, of course, but she was so nice. I was in awe. Amazing person. I still think back about how she was just so cool. What an incredible experience and great role model. Story 16. I used to work for a kettle corn stand for a baseball team that Bill Murray partially owned. He ordered some kettle corn and called me the kettle corn queen. When I told him his total, he said, Oh, I don't pay. I just tip really well. And he put a $20 bill in my tip jar. Ever since then, of course, I believe in all the cheeky Bill Murray stories. He really is like that. Story 17. I've loved Alan Cumming since the very start of his career. I saw his first TV appearance with Forbes' Mason. Fast forward almost 30 years, I've moved to the United States and met my now husband, who casually mentioned that he knows another Scottish guy. Yes, you guessed it, Alan Cumming. We met up with Alan when he came to town to perform, and despite him just coming off stage and exhausted, he was incredibly friendly and delighted to meet me and the kids. We get together anytime he's in the area and have met up with him in New York. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met, and he adores our kids. He has sent them little videos on their birthday a few times too. Just a wonderful guy.